All right, today's goal is going to be able to learn to display and analyze bar graphs. We're going to try to see how well you can do at putting data together in bar graphs. Write this down and move on. All right, so a quick warm-up for you. You just got to find the mean, median, and mode of this info. I'd like to keep you fresh on your math skills. Come back when you're ready. All right, so here are the answers you should have received in your warm-up. Remember, mean, you had to add them all up and then divide by 6, 7, 8, 9. The median, you put them all in order numerically. Find that middle number, which was 55. And the mode, 63 happened the most often. Twice on here it showed up. All right, if you got these all right, give yourself a pat on the back. All right, so since our goal today is to look at bar graphs, why don't we write down the definition of what a bar graph is? First, bar graphs can be used to display and compare data. And bar graphs display the data with vertical or horizontal bars. Okay, go ahead and write that down and then come back. All right, so let's get into our first example. Our first example here is reading a bar graph. We have one that the title says average summer temperature. On the x-axis, that's the one going on the bottom, we have biomes. We have 4 different biomes: deciduous forests, rainforests, grasslands, coniferous forests. And then the temperatures go up the y-axis. So the question says, which biome in the graph has the least average summer temperature? With a bar graph, it's real easy to see which bar is the lowest, and you can easily tell that it's coniferous. It's the lowest one. So your answer would be coniferous. So a bar graph really helps you just basically organize. Now the one thing I do want you to notice is we do have the titles for the x and y axis. And the one thing you'll notice with the y-axis, you have temperatures, and it says degrees Celsius next to it. Remember, if you write degrees Celsius in the title, you don't have to put it with every single number. So have this example written down before moving on. All right, let's look at the same bar graph. We're just going to look at a different question. So no, you do not need to write this down. Now the question says, which biomes in the graph have an average summer temperature of 30 degrees Celsius or greater? So here what we're doing is we first have to identify where 30 degrees Celsius is, which is right here. And now we got to look at all the bars that go up from there. So if I have the bar on a piece of paper that I can write on, or I have it in my notebook already, wink, wink, I just draw a bar kind of straight across. And whatever's touching that line or above it would be your answer. So which two need to be at have an average temperature of 30 or higher? That'd be rainforests and grasslands. So again, our graph helps us to organize our data. That's what this whole unit's been about. All right, it's your turn. I want you to look at this graph that we have here about cars in a parking lot. And you're going to answer these 2 questions. When you're done, come on back and we'll see how you did. So here are the answers you should have gotten. Least common is green. How do we know that? It's the smallest bar on the graph. And which colors appeared more than 10 times? You find that 10, you draw that line, you see that the red, the white, and the black are the ones that go above it. I tried to do the colors. I don't have a white pen to write on a white background. That would be very weird. Actually, what I should have done is just left it like this and said, can't you see the white? Haha, see, that's funny. Anyways, if you got them right, come over and give me a high five. All right, here's example 2. How do you actually make a bar graph? Now that we looked at how to read them, you're going to have to make one. Well, normally you're given some sort of table with the data, and here we can see it's the magazine subscriptions from probably a fundraiser sold by the 3 different grades. So your steps are right along the left. Those must be in your notes, along with making this actual table we have here, which should be the second table you've drawn. So, I'm sorry, not table, graph. So first you find the important information that you can see in the intervals. So we see the intervals are 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. So those are going to go along our x-axis. Along with those intervals, we have to look at the numbers and say, okay, how are we going to make the y-axis separate? And I picked 100 here for each one. So we make 0, 100, 200, 300. Even though we have 258, 597, 374, we're just going to have to be as close as we can to those. So once that's done, I draw on the x-axis, the y-axis. and then I picked different colors to show the bars. So once you have that, the last step is make sure you have your x-axis title, your y-axis title, and your overall title so people know what in the world they're looking at. So this is a good graph, a good table, and here are the 3 steps you should have written down. Before moving on, make sure you have these completed in your notebook.
Pretty much all you need to do is teach.
So there is such thing as a double bar graph. You should write that down. Sometimes when you're trying to compare 2 different things, you draw 2 bar graphs next to each other, and they're double next to each other, so that's why you call it a double bar graph. Write this down before moving on. All right, so here's one that I want you to create a bar graph for. So use the given data to make a bar graph. Just look at it. The x-axis is probably going to be periods. The y-axis, you have to think of good intervals going up. Okay, come back when you're done. So this is a rough sketch. If I was to do it really well, I would have probably drawn lines across. But here you can kind of see my data. First period is obviously the greatest, so I made sure the graph was there. Second period is close. Third period, or sixth period, 22. And that 7th period, only 7 kids. So this is what yours should somewhat look like. The biggest things that I'll be wanting you to identify is the titles. That you have equal intervals going up. I went by 5s. And everything is labeled properly and the graphs are straight. So if yours looks pretty close to mine, I want you to come on over and give me a fist pound.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to walk you through how to make a double bar graph. Your choice if you need to write any of this down. So this is when you need a double bar graph because we're looking at club members in the art club, the music club, and the science club, but we want to break our data down into boys and girls. So under art club, we'll have 2 graphs or 2 bars. Music will have 2 bars. Science will have 2 bars. So first we have to understand what we're looking at, and you can see here that we're comparing boys and girls in the clubs. Into club. All right, so now we have to determine the appropriate scale. And here, because the highest it is like 16, we can just go by 2s. The other thing you'll see here is we've made a key, so you know what colors go with what. That's always a good idea. So the boys are blue, purple, and the girls are like an orange. So then you just fill in the bars with the lengths they need.
Boys are magenta.
Oh, magenta. Joey says magenta. So that's what it should look like. Double bar graph just says 2 bars next to each other. You don't have to write this down unless you think you need to. What you do need to write down, however, is the answers to this double bar graph. I'll be checking how well your graph looks when you come to show me your quiz at the end of the lesson. So good luck putting this together. Make sure you have your headings, your titles. You have a proper interval, and you have 2 bars, and make like a little graph so you know what they are. If you don't have 2 different colors, you can always do something like men will be X's, and women, you can do like just diagonal lines. That stuff works as well too. All right, I'll check your answer on this one when you come over to me to show me your quiz. Good luck on this one. All right, you made it to your box of thought. You have three questions. For the third one, remember, it's the graph you just did, the double bar graph. So tell me why the double bar graph in example 3 needs a key. Why do you need to have a key for that? When you're done, move on to the quiz. And here's your quiz. 3 questions based on that bar graph. Well, the first 2 are based on the bar graph you see, and the third one you're going to make your own. That's it. We'll see you next lesson with a special guest who's going to be doing it.